What's up guys, it's Brian with Overstate.com, and for today's video we're going to talk about taking care of your hands. So is a video about hand care as interesting as one on deadlifts? No. But is it important? Mm-hmm. Now if you've been involved in lifting weights for any amount of time, you've probably at some point torn a callus. Typically it's your ring finger. I don't know why. If your hands even look remotely like that, guys, you will know that this will stop your training in a hurry. You can't really lift much of anything if your hands are all torn up. Maybe you could squat, but even then it's gonna suck. Now this is not an interesting subject, so I'm gonna try to make it as entertaining and as painless as possible, but there are a lot of things that you can do to keep your hands healthy so you can stay in the game. If you take care of your hands, they will take care of you. Let's go. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna cover is using chalk. Now I would very, very much encourage you to use chalk. I've actually left gyms because they would not allow me to use chalk, but if your hands are sweaty, then you're gonna get blisters. It's not gonna be cool. Use chalk. That said, if you do use chalk after you're done lifting weights, you need to get the chalk off your hands. I would use some sort of moisturizing soap because a lot of times the chalk will stay in there, it will dry your hands, it'll start cracking, bad things will happen. I personally don't have this problem because I think I'm just kind of oily. But if you are more prone to dry skin, I would recommend using some sort of moisturizer after your workout, but I would stick to more of the waxy version as opposed to the lotiony version because they seem to work a lot better for the people that I know that have that dry hand problem. Now, no matter how much you use the first couple things I recommended there, you're still gonna get calluses on your hands if you're lifting heavy things multiple times a week. It's just gonna happen. Now, I apologize for doing this, but I'm gonna show you guys my hand, and you guys can see all across here and all across here is nothing but a bunch of calluses just waiting to be problem areas. So I'm going to take a couple seconds and show you guys how you can remove them. Now, as a disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I know I look like one, but I am not. So if you choose to do this, you're doing it at your own risk. Do not go run to somebody and say, hey, Brian told me to stab myself in the hand, even though that's pretty much what I'm saying. Before you try out anything that I recommend on any of my videos, ask yourself, am I an idiot? If the answer is yes, do not proceed. If the answer is no, proceed carefully. Now that that's covered, a lot of people will use different things to cut the calluses off their hands. Some people like to use a knife. This would probably be a better knife. But remember that knives are dangerous. So some people like to use toenail clippers or fingernail clippers. Definitely a much safer option. But again, go back to point A. If you're an idiot, do not use a knife. Some people choose to use a scalpel or a razor blade. Super dangerous. Be very, very careful. If your hands look like this, don't use a scalpel. And then probably the safest option, a lot of people like to use a disposable razor or one of these fancy callus removers that you can see on the screen right now. These will run you about $15, but since I need to make about 45 YouTube videos to pull $15, I don't use that option. Now what I personally use and think works best are actually a little pair of pruning shears. Now I got these a while ago to trim bonsai trees, believe it or not. True. So I will use these little guys to cut the main portion off the calluses on my hands. Now, is it dangerous? Yeah, but so is cutting up carrots. But if you proceed with caution and you don't act like an idiot, you can mitigate those risks. It's really not that big of a deal. Now these next couple images may be a little gross and graphic for you, so if you don't want to see me cut off a finger, go ahead and skip ahead till later in the video. But basically what I like to do is keep the pruning shears pretty flat to my hand and then slowly snip around all the edges of the callus until I kind of leave that bottom portion. I find if I go at too steep of an angle, I'm obviously gonna cut in my hand. That is no good. So if I slowly just work around the edges, biting little pieces off, and then leave the middle part. If you go for that middle part with the scissors, a lot of times you'll cut too deep. Don't do that. Just take your time and keep biting a little bit more and more of the callus away, and then use the fingernails on your other hand to slowly and carefully remove the callus. Is it gross? Absolutely. But is it necessary if you want to continue training and you don't want to tear your hands open? Yeah. So I'll continue to do this working all the way across my palm, and then I will even hit this bottom knuckle of my hand. All right, so now that the majority of the callus has been taken off your hand, I recommend using a pumice stone. If you don't know what a pumice stone is, just go to a local drugstore, you'll find a pumice stone. A lot of people like to use emery boards, or there's even like some weird foot kind of sticks with like a cheese grater edge on it, and the other side is like an emery board, and people will file it down further from there. I know some guys, manly men, who just use sandpaper. I'm not a manly man, so I use the pumice stone. So I'll typically use those pruning shears a day or two after a big deadlift session or a big carry session where my calluses are no longer really, really sore and they've built up and kind of hardened. That's when they're easiest to cut into and probably the safest. I typically do that right before I get in the shower, and then after I'm done washing myself, my hands have been in the hot water, so they're kind of pruny. Stop picturing me in the shower, it's weird. and the skin is all softened up, that's when I'll use a pumice stone and I'll just drag it across, just kind of sanding down all those rough spots. If you do this correctly, you'll find you will not tear calluses. It will not be an issue anymore. It's very, very helpful, and you'll be able to continue training. All right, the final thing that I want to cover in this video is if you do end up tearing a callus during your training session, you still have deadlifts left or carries left, and you want to continue training, but you have a bloody cut in your hand. What can you do then? If you have athletic tape, which you should, you can fix this problem. Most people, when they tear a callus, like I said, is usually on the ring finger, so that's what we're gonna use for this example. So when this happens, you'll see many people stick tape around the edge of their hand, and they'll just wrap it around, right? And they're gonna end up getting a hand that looks like this, and this is not conducive to lifting a barbell. You will not even get half a rep in before this thing starts rolling down, exposing that callus. You're still in pain, it's not working, you wasted some tape. These are not good things. Get rid of that. A better option is to take a strip of tape. Doesn't have to be long, just a couple inches, right? In the middle of the tape, you're gonna wanna create a hole. Some people do this with their little scissors, with a knife. Some people bite it. Be better at biting. From there, you're gonna take that hole. You're gonna create a space big enough for your finger. Then you take said tape with the hole in the middle. You stick the problem area inside of that tape. Let it slide down all the way on top of your finger, then this pulls down. Take the back, you pull it down. So you start getting this motion. You might want to double this up because again, you're using heavy weights. Hopefully you're using heavy weights. Create a little hole, be smarter than the tape. Then you take more tape and you wrap the bottom portions just around your wrist. Not too tight, you don't want to die. Tear it off, and now you've got a smooth spot covering that callus. You can still hold it on a barbell. The other way about wrapping your hand like that makes your hand thicker, makes you get less grip on the barbell. That's not good. Keep it as flat as possible. This shouldn't slip. I actually pulled this a little short, torn my piece of tape a little bit short. It should come down a little bit further. Wrap it around your hand. Now you're protected, you can finish your workout. There you go, you're welcome. Anyway guys, I hope this was helpful and not too boring or gross. If you're involved in weight training in any sort of fashion, this is a problem that you're going to run into at some point. So now hopefully you know how to deal with it and how you continue training without having torn up hands. But I do really appreciate you guys watching, and thank you so much for all the positive comments, liking the videos, for subscribing. We're almost up 7,000 people, and that is a massive deal to me. I know it might not be that important to a lot of people and not that impressive to a lot of people, but to me, it's amazing. So thank you so much. Until I catch up with you later in the week, keep working hard, do something amazing with your lives this week, and I'll catch up with you then.